Welcome back to another episode of Abilene People, the podcast here on bigcountryhomepage.com, where we talk to Abilene's most interesting people. And boy, we've delivered that today with Myra Dean. Hi, Myra.
I think I'm being overhyped here.
Not at all. Not at all. Because you have such an interesting history. You are a person who has faced tragedy
Yes.
and triumph. You have been in real estate. You're a miniature real estate mogul. I don't know, even compared to me, you're a massive mogul, not miniature at all. But yeah, you've been involved in Abilene nonprofits. You've been in Abilene for profits. You've been all around Abilene. So what are you doing now? You retired?
Yeah. Well, today I was thinking, I don't know how I ever worked because I can't get everything done and I'm retired. And how did I do this when I was working? Now you might know how I did it, but I really, really, sometimes I'm so busy.
Yeah.
I just can't believe I'm this busy.
I think, and a lot of people know you. I think the people that know you think that you are the prototypical Energizer bunny. You go and you go and you go, but they may not know, that you have had your share of setbacks and challenges, everything from health to, I just want to touch on it because I feel like I have to, you've had tremendous loss. You lost a son in a horrible accident. And you recovered. I don't know. Do you ever recover? Is that a bad choice of words? But
Not really. I always tell people, because I've done a lot of public speaking about it, and just so that you know, I am not at all uncomfortable about talking about that at all. Because, I did a 40-minute interview on StoryCorps, which was published or broadcast nationwide. So I'm so used to talking about it. But I always tell people, you don't get over it. You just learn how to live with it.
yeah.
That was a pivotal moment in my life, and the person I am today is not the person I was before Rich was killed. I'm a totally different person. I'm a better person. I'd rather be a rottener person and still have him, but I don't get that option. So I will try to just, and what I've done, truly, I haven't ever tried to live my life for Rich. But what I really have tried to do is live a life that if he were alive, he would be proud of me.
Yeah. And if he were alive, he would be 50 years old or.
Yeah, he'd be 50. See, this is progress. I was able to tell you down to the month and day how long it had been since he died. But this is what happens when you live through it and live with it. And now he'd be 50, I think 5. I'd have to add it up.
So you had Rich when you were only 12 years old. That's an
Oh,
amazing
yes,
dynamic. That's
yes.
incredible. Okay. So
Hold on to that
you,
fantasy.
you currently are a contributing writer or a columnist for the West Texas Tribune.
That's correct.
And I want to talk about that. And I want to, here in a minute, just read a couple of quotes from your writing.
Okay.
Because it's really that, not that you didn't deserve to come on the podcast for lots of reasons. You're just an interesting conversationalist, but it's really that and this group you've put together that bring you to Abilene People, because this is so fascinating. The group that you've put together is a group made up of people who identify as Democrats, Republicans, independents, but they all in this group are dissatisfied at different levels, I'm sure, with the state of our country, where our country's headed. And you seem to have crafted a space where you very artfully talk about how we should be talking with one another about our future. Be honest about the disappointments or the disillusionment that you might have with government or politics. So tell us a little about this group and about your writing for the Tribune, and then we'll kind of get into it some more.
Okay, now, I'm ADD, so I take a lot of rabbit trails, and my communication style is a spiral. So if I spiral out, you bring me back.
Maybe you do the weave like other people.
Oh, no, I do not claim the weave. I claim the spiral. I went to Leadership Texas, and one of the sessions was on our communication styles, and my communication style, there was me and one other girl in a class of 110. We were it.
They said, spiral all you want.
Okay, all right. So what happened, I didn't really intend to start a group exactly. That's not what I had in mind. But I went to lunch with 2 different girlfriends 2 days in a row. And then I had an invitation from a couple I know to come over and eat pizza on the third day. So 3 days in a row, I had conversation with people of different political persuasions who told me they felt isolated because this is kind of how they said it, because I don't own a red hat and I live in MAGA land. And they were very isolated. And one was a Republican, I know for sure. One was sort of a very moderate, probably middle of the road, and a couple were Democrats. And so I came home and started thinking about that, and I thought, right there's 5, 2 of them are married, so that's 5 over there, and me, that makes 6 of us. And I know because of my writing on Facebook and social media, there's a whole bunch more of them out there because they write to me privately and they say, I can't speak out. And then you and I could discuss all the reasons why they feel they can't. But they said, please don't stop speaking, or you are speaking for me.
And what kind of speaking were you doing? Were you saying we need to be more collaborative? We need to be more compassionate. We need to get along? Or are you saying, look, it's okay to disagree. We just need to figure out a way to disagree in a way that's not disunifying?
I don't even think that was really, I was airing my frustrations at the direction the country is going. And other people identified with what I wrote. And to tie it to the Tribune, the way I ended up in the Tribune, is because I also had a big following because I loved to write stories that I call the Tales of the Ranchette, and about my little acre and a half out in the country and all the wildlife and domestic animals I've got. I wrote about all kinds of things. And so I got kind of a following. Well, then there was a point where I could not remain silent about what I saw happening to the country. I got really distressed. And the fact that I had been a lifelong Republican, and I always tell people, I didn't leave the party left me, because I feel this is no longer a Republican Party. The Tea Party MAGA people are running the country, and the Republicans, I used to say, those folks are the real rhinos. They're using the Republican name, but they don't believe in Republican values, or not the Republican Party I knew and grew up in. They're not demonstrating the values nor the policies that I believe in. But I still consider myself a moderate conservative Republican. So I went back to the two couples, and I said, what if, because they all knew other people who felt real isolated. And we had long conversation about what that meant in this area of the country. And I said, what if we got a little group together? So one of the friends had a great big house out in the country with a lot of land. And we thought, well, we don't know what's going to happen. Let's just invite a bunch of people and tell them it's potluck. And holy moly, 70 people showed up with potluck. We were not expecting that. So
were all of these people pretty much of the same mind
we were all of the same mind, but part of them were Republicans, part of them were former Republicans, part of them were Democrats, and some were independents, and some consider themselves unpartied.
So I've described it this way. I want to get your thoughts. That being cordial and cordiality used to be the norm, but now we're living in America in a post-cordial world. Was that a part of what you were trying to do, was reclaim being cordial, or it was different than that?
No, very different. I know. I just knew, I know what it feels like to be isolated. And they were all saying that exact word. We feel so isolated. Like one, now I'm not talking about the original 5 of us. I'm talking, because I really didn't do this all myself. I reached out to those people who told me they felt isolated, and then it just spread from there. And but the thing why I really brought it together was just because the common thread is people who are not happy about the direction our country is going, regardless of party, and that they don't feel that they can speak up about it.
Yeah.
There's a huge fear factor about speaking out when you live in MAGA land, which is what I call it.
And yet here we are, and I don't know that tens of millions will see our podcast, but we know that a lot of people do see it.
Yeah.
You have concerns about that because again, we live in a world. I called it a post-cordial world. Something's changed where used to we could sit down, have disagreement, and you didn't give a second thought that somebody was going to key your car or park outside your house and intimidate you. Is that the kind of concern that people have? Or is it just, we're not going to be friends any longer? What are the concerns
Well, interestingly enough, the column that I just turned in this morning for the Tribune, as an offshoot, let me get back to the story about the group. As an offshoot, then we had another meeting on a Sunday night, and everybody said, don't do Sunday night. We had fewer people, but it was much more intimate because a lot of the people didn't know each other. We all knew other people in common, but like all of us didn't know everybody, if you know what I mean. So we spent an evening, just a small group of us. It was really fun, but it was on a Sunday night, and everybody said, don't do this again. Since then, we've had dinners. We had Dr. Fabrizio at McMurray University come and talk. We've got another speaker lined up. We're getting another dinner together. And so that's about all I can tell you about it we have no anything. We don't have dues. We didn't get together
it's not a formal organization.
Right. Yes, and we don't talk politics. We're not there to talk politics. We do talk about some things, like there is a woman who every meeting we have, she says, if you are interested in wanting to register more voters, I can help you get there. Come see me after the meeting. And
but that's not political. That's
not
democratic.
Because yeah, exactly. And so we have that kind of thing. And so it just kind of evolved. It was like organic. It kind of just happened. And it all happened because everybody felt isolated. And here's what they told me. They'd either lost friendships. One couple I know, I'm not talking about just the original 5, but one couple I know changed churches because they no longer felt comfortable where they were. We've had people who have actually completely been written off by family members. No one wants confrontation, so they don't speak out publicly, or even across the board. I'm giving away my whole article that I wrote today that's going to the
good.
Tribune.
In fact, we'll in post put the Tribune's website down here so folks can go there.
Awesome.
and read your columns.
Yes, and there are many other really good columnists writing for that paper, I might add. And so anyway, what we decided was, well, a lot of people told me they had just stopped going to dinner. They'd stopped going out. They did not go to social things with a lot of their friends anymore. And so they were staying home, and the word isolation comes up over and over. The other thing is fear, those two things. And so I thought, how about if you were in a room, you don't know anybody's politics in this room, but you do know the one thing we have in common. We're like-minded in that we are very concerned about the direction of this country. We don't talk politics. We have said, if you're getting ready to run for office or something, that's not what this group is about. But look around, there might be somebody here that would be interested in talking to you, so but we're really not a political group. We're a group of people got together to fill the holes in the friendships and relationships we lost because of lack of civility, because we can no longer talk to each other.
That isolation is real. But it's hard to, codify or, validate, except in the way people feel.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent some time reading the articles on the Tribune that you've written. And in your writings, if I could, I'd just like to say just a couple of quotes and just get you to respond. You're talking about we believe, and I guess the we here is you and people of like mind, and maybe some in the group you've described. We believe despite our differences, we can work together, argue and bargain, negotiate and compromise. At some point, lawmakers can walk away and say, well, we didn't get everything we want, but we can live with this. The chaotic slash and burn, tear down almost the entire government at the same time with no obvious plan to replace or rebuild, that just has, you said must stop. It's just got to stop. These people, I think you're referring to the politicians, have forgotten they work for us.
Exactly.
Expound on that, because I think that's really, really well stated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the heart of the matter. I mean, that is really the heart of the matter. I think back in the day, as I know there's always been corruption. There's always been abuse.
Sure.
I mean, there's always been, as long as there's human beings being involved,
and
something's going to go wrong.
And I think for the sake of our audience, we
Yeah.
just need to stipulate that whataboutism is just going to get us nowhere, because
Right.
there have been really poor people. I don't mean poverty. I mean character on each side of the aisle. Really,
Exactly.
really rotten politicians
Exactly.
all around. There's enough to go around for
Yes.
Democrats and Republicans
Oh, yeah.
both. Okay.
Always.
All right. So
Always.
we're done with that.
But what changed was, and the former old politicians used to be very open about it. We fight all day, and argue and fight, and then we'll go have a beer or dinner at night.
But when did that become a bad thing?
I know,
Yeah.
Danny. That's exactly. And interestingly enough, if you read my column this month, you'll find that what I did is I reached out to all these people. Not all of them are even in Abilene, and not all of them are in Texas, but I reached out to as many as I could in a short period of time and interviewed them. And what they all want, including me, is they want the political representatives, because everybody, quote unquote, hates politicians, but they want their representatives to go to Congress and argue, negotiate, compromise. That's now a dirty word. Compromise, and come up with exactly that, where everybody goes back home or goes to dinner that night and they go, well, we didn't get everything we wanted, but on both sides they go, but we can live with this. We have lost that civility. Now our government is my way or the highway.
So
that's the split.
Is there a path back? I mean, do you legitimately think
let's pray for our country there is. And I don't know how it's going to happen, but here's what I usually say. Oh, geez, I'm sorry.
That's all right. It's all right. This is live podcast.
Boy, is it. Yeah, let me turn off my watch. But one of the things that I realized was I can't do anything about anybody in the past in the government. The only thing that matters is what we're facing right now. So it doesn't infuriate me, but it really concerns me how often when I speak out on social media, you only get so far down the line and somebody chimes in with Biden this or, oh, no. They go, and I'm going, he's not president anymore.
Yeah.
We don't know. He may be at home, sitting in a wheelchair. I don't know, but that's not who I'm worried about.
And I'm sure you've run into this. Well, you tell me if you've run into this, that if you say, well, I'm not really a Trump fan, people will respond and say, well, you must love Biden. Well, wait.
Yeah.
I really actually don't.
Yeah, I get accused of being a libtard.
But
I'm unchristian. I'm un-American. I'm not a patriot.
You've been a Republican.
All my life.
You voted Republican.
All my life.
Yeah. All right. So you said something about I don't know the word you used, but aggravation or something, because you have a great quote in another article where you talk about, I have to admit, as time's gone on, I've gotten much edgier and confrontive. I am trying to back off of that and regain my equilibrium. I never intended to try to convert someone to my way of thinking. As time goes on, I'm starting to see people are beginning to show signs of Trump fatigue. Expand on that. I think, again,
Yes.
Very well said.
Okay, well, it's based in fact, because when you are, I kind of skipped over how I ended up at the Tribune. I left off with he called and asked if he could publish my animal stories. And I said I would be honored. So he started publishing my animal
We're talking about
stories.
Floyd.
Yes, Floyd Miller is the publisher.
Publisher
yes,
of,
yes,
of West Texas Tribune.
West Texas Tribune. And then he started kind of following me and noticing what I refer to as my rants, and because it's still American, I still have the right to
First
an opinion
Amendment.
and
First Amendment.
and I can speak up. They don't have to like it, but I'm going to speak it out. I encourage a lot of people. Look, it's very obvious when I'm talking political. Scroll right on by. Will not hurt my feelings. Just if it upsets you, don't read it. Don't read it. That's your prerogative. But anyway, Floyd then started seeing my political rants, and then he called me and he said, "Look, would you be interested in writing a political column for the paper?" And I thought, well, I'm doing it anyway, so yeah, sure, I'll give it a try. I said, if I can't come up with something, we'll just publish another animal story.
And it turned out it's probably not that hard to come up with something in this
Oh
current
my!
environment.
Let me tell you, there are times when it takes me longer to decide which thing that's making me crazy should I address. But I try, and here's what Floyd said to me, and this is why I said yes. Floyd said, "Myra, I've been reading your political stuff, and it seems to me you try to always be respectful, and you're just trying to get people to think." Oh my gosh, Danny, that hit me right. I went, somebody gets it. I'm never going to convert somebody who's in the MAGA cult, and it is a cult, I believe. I read a book by a guy named Hassan, and it's The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump, I believe is the title of it, something like that. And it's, anyway.
But your goal isn't
the cult
to convert.
of Donald Trump. That's what it
But
is.
your goal is
No,
not to convert.
not
people.
really, not anyone. Here's what my goal was. I'm saying what I believe, and I know personally because so many people, I mean, I was astonished how many people write to me through Facebook who don't even know me, but want me to know that they don't feel like they can speak up. And because there's a huge fear factor, which I don't think Democrats understand it. And I don't think the Republicans, I don't think very many people, except those of us who are in that group, understand the fear here about speaking out. And so I started getting all these messages, and then they started to get more frequent, and then they got more urgent and more, it's like I had this group of cheerleaders. The feedback I got from friends and people who read my stuff, especially those who still believe Donald Trump, was, Myra, you're not going to change anyone's mind. I wish you'd stick to your animal stories. I had a person I know who wrote me a handwritten letter and mailed it to my house who said, "I'm really concerned about you." Almost the implication was I'm losing my mind in my old age. And he said, "I'm really concerned about you because you've lost all the joy in your life." And, and I went, all you're doing is masking. You want me to shut up. Almost all the feedback I get is people who are trying to tell me to shut up. What they don't realize is this army of people who are writing to me saying, "Don't shut up."
And I want to clarify one thing, because I think what you mean when you say most of the feedback I get is people wanting me to shut up, you mean most of the negative feedback
Yes,
you get.
yes. Oh, yeah.
Because you get a lot. Wouldn't you say it's mostly positive, encouraging, me too kind of feedback? Is that most of what you get?
Are you basing that on the social media, or are you just asking me in general?
I guess either. General is what I
Okay.
was thinking.
Well, in social media, not so much.
But don't you think that's an odd laboratory? Social media.
Yes. Oh,
It's a strange cocktail in that aquarium. And as I think I got off of Facebook because of this very dynamic.
I thought about it.
It's.
But here's the thing, Danny. Everything in the world has pluses and minuses. I got on Facebook because I want to see. I have friends all over the world.
That's
because
what
of my life.
That's what I miss.
And I know my friend from Saipan in the Northern Mariana Islands now lives in a town in the States. And one of my good friends that's on the global board, he has a home in the same place, and they're going to get together and have a beer next time.
Because you never would have known that if not for the connection on Facebook.
And like Mavericks fans, I run a Mavericks band Facebook page, and I've got friends in England and Belgium and Germany and Arizona and all over the country. And I have real friendships, and it's kind of like taking the place of the old days of the pen pal. But I've also met a lot of these people in person. Yeah. And I told my story about losing my son. I have a gal who's a friend of mine in Arizona who specifically drove through Abilene to meet me because of Facebook.
The gain in your case is definitely worth any pain there is associated with being involved in social media. I totally get that. Yeah. I want to go back to kind of another hot take, if you will. Sure. that's I heard somebody say that. It's a hot take. I don't know what it is, but it's a great quote. You said, "I'm not, all caps, a Democrat," as Seinfeld would say. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm a lifelong Republican. Many Republicans voted for Donald Trump in 2016 because they felt traditional Republican politicians were no longer listening to them. There's a growing number of Republicans just like me. We're not Democrats. We're not independents. We're not libertarians, but neither are we members of the MAGA or Tea Party. We're Republicans. We just feel disenfranchised and unpartied. I love that word. Maybe you came up with it, or maybe it's a word that's
well, I don't know.
used.
Somebody else might have used it, but I came up
love
with
it.
it.
It's the first time I've seen it.
Yeah,
unpartied.
and it gets spell checked every single time.
Yeah,
There's
right,
no such word.
Right.
Yes, and part of all that is that I always tell people I didn't leave the Republican Party; it left me. I'm still out here being a moderate conservative Republican who believes in small government. And I've asked this question of several people who've come after me on social media, who think because immediately, you're a liberal, you watch CNN, blah, blah, blah. Well, I watch that. I watch Fox News. I watch all kinds of stuff, a lot of podcasts. And I always go, okay, well, then explain to me, if you are a Republican and you believe in small government, I want you to explain to me why Donald Trump fired the board of the Kennedy Center and why he's now running the Kennedy Center. Explain that to me, because that doesn't sound like small government to me. I think, he should be working on our country's problems, not taken over the Kennedy Center. Now he's going after the Smithsonian Institute. I'm going, oh my gosh.
Yeah, just where does it end?
Where does it end? That's not small government, Danny.
I saw recently an interesting quote from somebody. I'll tell you who it was from, but early on, as you're reading it, you don't know. And it's talking about immigration. Mm-hmm. And oh my word, it was so pro-immigrant, how immigrants started this country, how we're all heirs of an immigrant legacy, how immigration is key to the future of America. And they were asking people, what do you think about this? And, well, that's just ridiculous. That's got to be, that's some liberal. Who said that? Obama? Who said that? Biden? Who said that? Actually, Ronald Reagan.
I know. I knew where you were going.
Well, things have changed.
Things have changed.
Yeah.
And I mean, and I've never completely agreed with the entire Republican. Here's the thing.
Of course not.
Republican policy, because I have people come after me and they say, well, you're against deportation. And I'm going, whoa, back up, Joe.
Yeah.
I'm not against deportation. If there's someone coming in this country who is a criminal or a violent person or, a spy, I'm all for deportation.
Get them out.
Get them out. But because and I don't blame Trump for this, I blame it. This goes back way back. We have kicked the can down the road and not fixed a broken immigration system. The birth rates are going down. Years ago, a Republican, you may remember, Pat Buchanan, wrote a book called The Death of the West. And I read it. And what he said in that book was that westernized countries like Japan, America, and Germany, and a number of others are not having birth rates that are high enough to keep up with the number of people, because older people are living longer, and we are soon not going to be able to keep our economy together, nor is Japan. And Japan is actually having that problem right now. They're trying to figure out what to do. And even the Japanese guy I saw interviewed said, there's only two ways: have more births or bring in more immigrants. America's been, even Donald Trump's mother was an immigrant. We're all immigrants, unless you're...
No pun intended. The majority of the spouses for Trump, his family, his staff, his cabinet are immigrants.
I know.
Or first descendant or second generation.
But what's happened is our government for so many years has not dealt with the issue of there are a lot of people wanting to come into our country to work. I will give George Bush a big thumbs up because he had a work program that I thought was brilliant. He couldn't get it through Congress, but the idea was people who specifically like from Mexico who would come into the country to work, then they got paid a decent wage. We knew they were here. They could take their money and go back home at night or at the end of the job or whatever At that time, American money was worth more in Mexico than the Mexican peso. So it would lift up the Mexican economy. People did not have to be afraid to come and go across the border. And people here in America who needed workers, the workers would get a decent wage. People here would have good workers. And we wouldn't have all this the hordes coming across across the border. And I'm going, but no one took the time to get enough people to process people. And now they're throwing people to the ground who've overstayed their visa or overstayed their work permit. These people are, and they're saying, well, they're criminals because they overstayed. And I'm going, no, it's our fault they've overstayed it. Some of them are getting picked up when they are doing exactly what they were told to do, which is going in and checking in with the government. They're waiting. They're trying to. I know a guy. I saw his papers. I made him bring me his papers. And I know a guy who it had been over 20 years. He's been trying to get, but he went to a lawyer in Dallas who's taking his money and telling him it'll be 7 more years. I mean, they just get taken advantage of. All he wanted to do was become a citizen. He knows more about, I sat down and had lunch with him one time. He knew more about American politics than most of the people I talked to. And he spoke 3 languages. And I'm going, people, the system is broken. We're putting all our money into ICE agents and walls and border patrol. Nobody is fixing it so we can process the immigrants that we so desperately need in this country. Because I got a news flash for you. We're probably not going to start having bunches of kids again. They're trying to take us back to the 50s, but it ain't working. And I lived through the 50s. They weren't all that it's cracked up to be.
Well, and that's a whole other podcast, isn't it? But you know what, Myra? It seems to me that we've got to address at some point. This is the big we. This is This is the people we deserve more from. The people we elect. The people that are politicians who should turn into policymakers. We need better asylum laws because people can come in and claim asylum, and then they're in legally. They're here, and we're sending people back who are here legally who've claimed asylum. And look, you don't have to like our asylum laws. Then let's change our asylum laws. But what has happened to law and order? I thought Republicans were the law and order party.
I kind of thought that too, Danny. Yeah. And the ones I know still are. I mean, the people that I reached out to and interviewed for this next column I'll just give them another big plug, westtexastribune.org. But the people that I reached out to that had, and a lot of them I don't know, have never met, but they agreed to talk to me on the phone. And I told them I would not put anything in the article that anyone could identify them from because the fear is real. I've been told, I'm afraid people who own businesses or are in the professions, lawyers, doctors, what I hear is I'm afraid it'll affect my business or my clientele or whatever. The people who are, retired, they're fearful they'll lose their church family or their own family or their children or grandchildren who are under the MAGA, And so the fear factor is real. People are seriously worried about, I have friends who did not put up Joe Biden signs in their yard because they were too afraid of what their neighbors would do because they know their neighbors. And so, that's suppression. You might not like that your neighbors for that guy, but you used to be able to put out a sign and not have to worry somebody might come and burn your house down.
Yeah, for Pete's sake. And I get what you're saying. What do you say to the people who say, oh, Myra, that's just anecdotal. That's just one example here, one example there. Those are outliers. That's not the majority of people. Would you say, well, there's a large percentage of our population here locally who feels isolated, who has concerns, they're legitimate, and they shouldn't be ignored? Is that what you would say?
Well, they shouldn't be ignored or suppressed, or they should not have to be fearful about having an opinion. And and I have said to both some Democrats I know, not people in the friendship arena, but politicians, Democratic politicians, I've said, you don't understand the reason these people are not speaking out. Well, what have they got to be afraid of? I've heard that from both sides. The MAGA people who come after me on social media, if I mention that people are afraid to speak up, well, what have they got to be afraid of? Well, they're afraid people at their church are going to be ugly to them. They're afraid their neighbors will be ugly to them. They're afraid somebody will do something to their home or their property. They're afraid their people will not come to their business or do some crazy thing of, protest in front of their business. I mean, they have legitimate reasons to be concerned. If you watch the news, you know that those are legitimate concerns. And so, so we're forced to remain silent or suppress our opinion. And I address a lot of this in a little more detail in this upcoming article because I wanted to hear from all of them. What was your journey out of the Republican Party to where you are now? And I tried to just stick with the Republicans, former Republicans. Some of them said I'm kind of a wishy-washy. I really have always been more independent, but I always voted Republican, but I'm really not a Republican. But they were very outspoken as well. So I reached out to people in other states. I reached out to a lot of people in our area, not all of them from Abilene, and I didn't get to everybody, but I had a deadline. And there's a lot of commonality. I mean, just a lot of how we all ended. Different people came in at different. Okay, let me tell you this story, and this won't identify anyone. A woman I know who voted for Donald Trump 3 times makes me sound calm and unconcerned because she gave me an earful of how scared she is with the way things are going right now with the country she's leaving to her children and her grandchildren.
What made her? She had a change? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, big time.
She regrets her 3 votes? Is that what you're saying?
Well,
what was the change?
Yeah.
Or what changed her?
Because what she's seeing is not what she signed up for.
Oh, I see. Okay.
She's not seeing what she thought she was voting for. And the only reason she voted for him the last time is because everybody in her family was, and she just kind of voted for. This is the thing. Most of the ones who talked to me said, well, I really voted for the party, not Donald Trump. And that's my issue. Here's what I believe. I still believe in Republican policies and values for the most part.
Yeah, you would endorse the Reagan Republican.
Well, yeah, there were things Reagan did that I wasn't real crazy about. But yes. But old school, the former civil Republicans who would argue and fight with the guys on the other side of the aisle or ladies on the other side of the aisle. They'd all argue, then they'd negotiate and argue. Remember when negotiate and compromise were not dirty words?
Right.
Okay, well, they would do that, and then they would get together and come up with the bill or whatever. And that's what has changed. It's my way or the highway.
Well, in those days, the common good.
Common good
was the most important thing.
That's it. People voted for the country, not the party. And that's the change I see. And the sad part is they can say Republican all they want, but they are not displaying Republican values. The number one thing, if you really want to get me fired up, is I was brought up, I went to civics class, I've studied. Our government constitution is based on 3 equal bodies, branches of government. Each has their own specified powers and responsibilities, and each serves as a check on the other 2 branches. And what I've watched is Donald Trump and his minions completely destroying our Constitution and trying to pull everything when the Supreme Court and the Congress think they're supposed to be doing Donald Trump's bidding. We are so close to, and this was said to me several times, we're so close, I'm scared we'll never get our country back.
Well, you talk about great minds because the 4th and final hot take says the number one reason I cannot support Donald Trump and the MAGA party is because they are dismantling our system of government. Our government was not designed to have all the power in one branch. The Constitution says 3 equal branches independent of each other with checks and balances on each. I watch with great alarm as Trump continues to try to put all the power under the executive branch.
What wise person said that, Danny?
Well, I think that's a writing from one Myra Dean in the West Texas Tribune. Once again, westtexastribune.org, as you would say. But in all seriousness, I think you could take Trump out of that and put the
Yes.
name John Doe in. If John Doe did these things, you would feel exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
This isn't Trump derangement syndrome for you. This
No.
is reacting to John Doe, in this case, Donald Trump policies. And
Yes, and that's the distinction. There are Republican policies and there are Donald Trump policies. He ran as if he were a Republican, but what is happening now does not fit into Republican policies. It's Donald Trump policies. I'm still a Republican, but I am not a MAGA because Donald Trump's party is doing things that I am scared to death about. I think our Constitution, and nothing annoys me more than the people that come after me on social media saying they are Republicans and they believe in Republican values. And I'm going, well, no, wake up. You do not believe in Republican values. You've slipped into Donald Trump values. You know, we have a lot of values that are not being fulfilled by the current administration. They're no more Republican than my cat is.
well, it certainly is new. We're seeing so many new things, and they all happen, it's seemingly at the same time, but they're happening so fast. They're rapid fire. It's like defending yourself in just your thought world against a Gatling gun,
Yeah.
which may be a terrible, terrible metaphor, but it just comes at you so fast.
Oh, yeah.
From let's fire the Fed
Yeah.
to let's invade Greenland
Yeah.
to, the next all caps tweet. And again, I don't really care if it's John Doe or whoever,
Yeah.
but that kind of approach to policy is not healthy. Let's, in the middle of a decade, first time ever, redo the districting in Texas so that Republicans have a bigger edge. Well, what's that about? That is about keeping power over and against long-held Democrat and Republican traditions.
Oh, absolutely.
And so what we're going to see is all-out warfare, so to speak,
Yep.
with
Political warfare.
political warfare. And what Gavin Newsom is proposing in California is a volley back. So do we really want to see that in our country?
Yeah.
Why can't we just move forward
Right.
with a sense of common good and normalcy? Well, I don't know that we'll see that again in a while.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. And it doesn't make me a Democrat. It makes me a very concerned American citizen. And, one of the things that continues to eat at me, and I'm going to say something that's controversial, but I don't care because if anybody reads my stuff on Facebook, they've probably seen it. I predicted a long time ago, before he was elected, that if he were elected for a second term, because, okay, I'm a storyteller, so I got to go back one more leap. My brother and I were both raised in a Republican home, and I consider myself a lifelong Republican. But my brother and I both have a fascination with things like, we like tornado videos because when we were kids, we spent 5 days under our house with tornadoes going over that killed a lot of people in Kansas City. That made an impact. We both love the Civil War. We've got a lot of things in common, but we don't really talk about all that kind of stuff. We mostly make tacky remarks to each other and send ugly birthday cards. I mean, but he's there for me, I'm there for him. So, well, where was I going with this? I'll be right back.
Well, you made a prediction.
Oh yeah, I made a prediction because one of the things I did not know my brother did, but I did as well, is I've been kind of fascinated by, it's probably the counselor part of me. I went back and I knew about Donald Trump's whole career. I've always just kind of marveled at how in the world, if you look into his career and know the details, and what concerned me was that so few people, when he started coming up as a candidate, knew about how he does business. And then in the next breath, I'd hear him say, well, we need somebody to run the country just like a businessman who'll run it like a business. And well, be careful what you wish for, because that's exactly what you got. chaos, total chaos. Donald
Because
Trump.
his business world is
Oh,
not the same as the public image in The Apprentice. Is that what you're saying?
oh yeah, and I just had a conversation with a woman who had voted for Trump 3 times herself, had no idea that that program was brought from England by Mark Burnett, who did The Survivor, and he's got Big Brother and all the. He brought that over, and he interviewed. I wish I could remember all of them. Donald Trump, I think Mark Cuban was one of them he talked to, but 4 wealthy guys to hire one of them to play the part of a really rich man who was the boss. It was a script. It was a part. I'll give Donald Trump this. Back then, he was shrewd enough. He could not get a loan from any American banks at all. He was really in financial trouble. And being the con man guy he is, he got it that if he took that part, he made them pay him part of the proceeds. They put him up as a producer. All he did was show up. And a lot of people believed that he actually was the person he was portraying. And I said, well, would you let a soap opera doctor operate on you? You know, wouldn't you look into his background to see if he actually had any knowledge about surgery? But they didn't look into Donald Trump at all. They just believed the image and what they were told. And I'm going, it's impossible to bankrupt a casino, and he did. And then he had the bright idea that he was going to open a national mortgage company because he was such a real estate tycoon. And so he opened a national real estate company, a mortgage company. That was his aim. And the guy he hired to run it, the national one, was a guy who had just gotten his real estate license 6 months before. What could possibly go wrong there? And of course, that didn't make it, nor did his stakes, nor did his university, nor did his airline. The list goes on, and I could tell you. And so what I'm saying is they bought a TV reality star's position on a reality show instead of looking at the man as he really is and his history, and I was just like, very few people know this. In his first term, he was sued by a small businessman because he is famous. One of the reasons banks wouldn't loan him money, he's famous for not paying his contractors. And a guy painted, like Trump owed him $300,000, and this is Trump's philosophy. He probably doesn't have the money to sue me, so I'm not going to pay him. So he refused to pay him. And the guy took him to court, and he won. While Donald Trump was president in his first term, he lost that court case and had to fork over the money plus court costs to this painter. And I mean, that's not a one-off story. The stories are legion. And if anybody even cared, it isn't fake news, because back in the 80s, Trump might have toyed with the idea, but it's not anyone with Trump derangement syndrome, because he wasn't even looking at politics back then. He was trying to buy politicians, but he wasn't thinking about being one himself.
So when you say all of these things, after having said, I'm really not trying to change anybody's mind, or is it your idea that you're saying these things to explain where you are and where you've come from? Is that in essence what you're doing? Because I find a lot of this very persuasive. It's very eye-opening, but that's really, as you said earlier, not so much your goal as this is why I feel so passionate. This is why I feel the way I do. Yeah, exactly.
Because it really upsets me that our country managed to get along for darn near 250 years with only one civil war. And in essence, we have got at least a social civil war. We may not have one in the streets and here's the other thing, Danny, this is the joy of getting old. I mean, so many people tell me I should shut up and, be quiet. And you're not going to convince anyone and blah, 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 blah. And I'm going, well, you don't understand my intention, for starters. I know I can't change the people who are going to believe in Trump without ever checking into him. But if they want to continue to believe in that, and, when our rights go and when it gets tough, they're going to lose their rights just like I do and like you do and the immigrants do and everybody does, So history will probably right the ship at some point. However, at my stage of life, I'm old. And I'll be honest with you. If somebody quits being my friend because I'm speaking out, so be it. I'm old. I'm old and I don't care. There's a young woman on social media who does a little stick for premenopausal, menopausal women, and postmenopausal women. And I've seen her in real life, but this is a character she kind of plays. Got glasses here and glasses here, and she's got a clipboard and a bathrobe on, and she calls it "We Don't Care." And she has all these other women write in the comments section what we don't care about today, and she's just hysterical. And I go, that's kind of where I am. And I'm going, if you don't like what I'm saying, feel free to just scroll on by. But there are a lot of people out there who feel the way I do, and they feel isolated, and they think they're alone because everybody they know at their church and their bunco group or whatever group, they're all Trump fans and supporters. And I'm in groups that the majority are Trump fans and supporters. And the one thing we all agree on, all of us, is we don't talk politics with our friends, our family, our church members, whatever. That's the way all the silent people who I'm representing, I call them, the ones hiding in plain sight. That's how they're coping. And they told me it's really, really hard sometimes to keep quiet.
So, Myra, as we draw this to conclusion, and I do want to ask you just a general question, all of this aside, just about your thoughts about Abilene in the next 10 to 15 years and what you're thinking. But one last question. Are you concerned? Did you have second thoughts about coming on the podcast? Because inevitably, we would talk about things that might lead you down some of the paths you've gone down, where you've just been nothing but transparent. And you said, people don't have to agree with me. I have a First Amendment right to express it. But are you concerned that you're going to be, shopping at the grocery store, or you're running an errand and you're picking up some dog food or something? I don't know what it might be. You run into somebody and they're rude to you. I heard you say, I don't care. I don't care. Should you? Are we living in a world where you're maybe you should be a little concerned? Or do you genuinely? I don't care. I don't care.
Well, that's the joy of getting older, is because I go, okay, this is how I personally feel about it. I can't pick up a gun and go fight for my country anywhere, but I see my country, at threat from within. Because when you take an oath to the Constitution, when you're elected official at a high enough level, you take, and our soldiers and you take an oath to the Constitution and to protect it and defend it from, enemies, both foreign and domestic. For the first time in my lifetime, although I do know, because I'm history buff, the closest we ever came to this was in the late 30s, early 40s, when, like, for instance, 20,000 Nazis were at Madison Square Garden.
Rally.
The rally. So we've been this close before, but we never had a president, Congress, and Supreme Court that all were in line with it. So there were plenty of crooked politicians plenty of them. But so we've been through this before. But here's the thing. I feel like I am, and I tell my friends, I have not been fortunate enough to have grandchildren. I am not fighting. And my kids are, old enough that they're old enough. I don't know how bad it's going to get when the big turn
in their lifetime.
Yeah, in their lifetime, but it's not. But I don't have any grandchildren, and I tell the people who are still MAGA people, and some of us can have some conversation, but I'm a bit overbearing. But I tell them, I'm not fighting for my grandchildren. When I leave this planet, I have 2 stepchildren left as my legacy, and so I don't have any grandkids. I'm not fighting for my grandchildren. I'm fighting for your grandchildren. And I know you don't know it, but they are in mortal danger of not having the kind of life you want for them. And I am too old to carry a gun and fight for my country, but I'm not too old to tell the truth. And I am going to go to my grave now or later, whenever God calls me home. But I feel it's my duty as an American and a patriot. I feel as patriotic as any one of our military who's out there carrying a gun. And if if it takes an old white woman to be saying what people need to hear, to understand, because there are so many out there being silent. The name of my column this month is Hiding in Plain Sight. They are half-heartedly going to church. They're half-heartedly going to social stuff. They're taking the joy where they can find it. I take the joy where I can find it. And I have not been so worried. My friends worry about me being so outspoken. And I'm going, I'm old. I just guess I've gotten to the point I go, if I lose friends over it, then they weren't really friends at all. And I don't hate them. They may hate, a lot of them I know don't hate me, but they hate that I'm speaking out. But I'm going to speak out. I spoke out about drunk drivers when my son was killed. I spoke out about Global Samaritan and the needs of the people that we were helping. I mean, that if I don't think I have a superpower, honestly. I'm kind of now blowing it up a lot. But I mean, the one thing about me is I've always had a big mouth and don't know when to shut it. And if I wanted to just sit back in a hole and go along and still have a whole lot of friends. And, I have a lot of people who love me, and I've got a lot of animals who love me. I've got family members who love me. With my MAGA family members, we don't talk politics, but I see cracks. I see cracks because I know them, to the heart. And I know they may not admit it, but I know they're seeing stuff that's starting to really worry them.
Well, you mentioned people that have voted multiple times for the Republican ticket with Donald Trump at the top of it, who feel now what they're getting is not what they thought they were voting for. So those are the cracks you're talking about.
Yeah, and more of them are seeing things that's like they still, the true MAGA people go to, you're a libtard, you watch CNN, you don't believe, they tell me what I believe. They say I don't believe in deportation. And I'm going, y'all, even the Democratic friends I have believe in deportation, and they're going to take away our guns. Even my Democratic friends around here have guns. I'm going, you don't want to know the truth, and I can't make you look at it, And now I generally keep my spiritual feelings to myself. I'm a Presbyterian. We're pretty much, old school, traditional. I just can't even hardly pray in public. I'm always glad there's a Baptist around because they'll pray in public, but I can't do it. I don't want to do it. But here's what I'm saying. I'm a red letter Christian, and it absolutely makes me nuts when people say, you're anti-Christian, and I go, I do know the Bible, and I have a red letter edition, and here's what I believe. I believe as a Presbyterian, I rarely hear hellfire and damnation. What I hear is, here is what Christ came. He was the Son of God. Here is what Christ taught us. It's all laid out in my favorite Bible in red letters. And what I believe as a Christian is, my job on earth, though I fail miserably, is to try to do what Jesus said when he was here and to follow the example that he gave. And James Tallarico, who is a young in Presbyterian, I might add, seminary, so I'm very excited he's a Presbyterian, but he's really coming up in the Democratic Party here in Texas. And he said it really well. I believe that I am supposed to follow Jesus's lead, what he showed us in the Bible, and he believed in the outsider. He defended the outsider. He didn't hang around with the Sadducees and Pharisees and he went to the temple to talk one time, but probably more than once, but he hung out with the prostitutes and the tax collectors and all the hated people. That's who. And Jesus never tried to force anyone to follow him. He didn't. He died because we're such dodos. He died for us. But Jesus never tried to force anyone to follow his lead. And I always think of the AA program, they always say it's a program of attraction,
Yeah.
not promotion.
Yeah.
And Jesus was a man of attraction, not promotion. And it concerns me greatly that I see my government trying to promote a certain facet of religion. And I'm a Christian.
So I would take a wild guess and say that you're not real excited about posting the 10 Commandments on the wall of a classroom. I would just take a guess. Okay. All right. So let's see if we can end this this way. Just at the 5,000 foot level. Give me your what you'd like to see in Abilene 10 or 15 years.
In Abilene?
Yeah, just in Abilene. And I want to tell you, I asked that question one time, and a podcast guest said something like, I'd like to see a super target, which I thought was a brilliant answer. That's wonderful. So you could go that route. You could say, in general, whatever you'd like to say.
Okay.
What would you like to see in Abilene?
I really hadn't thought
10 or
about that
15
because,
years.
but I've had it because I've been involved on so many boards and so many nonprofits.
Of course.
The first library task force, I can't even tell you how excited I am about. I mean, I was always worried about the librarians in the basement over at the main post office.
You've got to love the what's going on down at Abilene Heritage.
I do. I absolutely can't wait. And but I really hadn't thought about that specific. I hope Abilene doesn't follow the national trend to try to become a Christian town. We got churches on every corner, and half of them are empty. So I hope that there doesn't get somebody up higher up that decides that's the kind of stuff we need to work on. I'm going, no, work on the streets, work on the curbs. I love what they are doing downtown. I mean, when I bring friends in, I'm not lying, Danny. I am so proud because when I moved to Abilene in 1978,
it was a very different downtown.
Oh, downtown had boarded up stuff. I still remember going down Pine Street in some building with this big piece of tin that was just like flapping off the front of the building. It was dead. If it had not been for we came with Dias, I don't know what I would have done. And
I'm just curious, real quick, touchstone.
Yeah.
Was Mackie Eaplin's cafeteria still downtown when you moved to Abilene?
It wasn't.
So it was already gone.
But
the Maccula's drive-through was still open.
And everybody was still talking about it. And we had what's the one, the cafeteria, Luby's cafeteria. I mean. But what's happened when my friends come here, they are blown away at this town. And I hope that, and I have told a lot of people, I said, the thing about Abilene to me is that it grew from the ground up, not from the top down. And that everyday citizens like me who volunteered and worked on nonprofits and served on the city council and, I see this as the biggest collaborative effort of, and I maybe this is a story I shouldn't tell, but I think I can tell it. When Governor Abbott came to town with the lady who doesn't live in Abilene to run against Stan Lambert, there was a huge Abilene protest. There was a protest across the street from where they were going to be. And someone had made a huge banner, and I don't even remember exactly what it said, but something like "Go home, Liz," go back to the Metroplex, whatever. And if I'd had presence of mind, if I'd have been thinking at all, I'd have taken my phone and run around in front of that banner and gotten a nice sweeping photo because at this end of the banner was one of my most far left Democratic dyed-in-the-wool friends. And on this end was one of the most right-wing conservative people I know. And they were holding opposite ends of the same banner. And I just went, if that doesn't explain the beauty of it, because at some level, some of us can still have conversation. I keep saying this whole mess is not about right versus left. This whole mess is about right versus wrong. And I don't mean right in the political sense. I mean right in the biblical sense. That's what's happening to our country. And I have hope. I have hope because so many people. Now, whether this translates into a win, like a midterm win, there is so much out there that could happen.
Who knows?
We may not even have 2026 elections. I mean, that's a
knows?
possibility.
Who knows?
So, but what I do believe in is the American people. What I like about Abilene is when somebody has a car accident or their house catches on fire, you know, nobody's going, we would like all the Republicans to please bring donations, or we would like all the Democrats to please bring donations. We don't care. We help. You know, Mr. Rogers said, you know, his mom taught him, when times are bad, look for the helpers. There's still a lot of helpers in Abilene. That's my faith in Abilene. And I believe Abilene may transcend all this mess, but greatly concerns me that more people don't do their homework before they vote, because look at the mess we're in. And
Well, I'll tell you this.
so,
There's a lot of helpers in Abilene,
yes.
and we've had one here today on the
Oh,
podcast.
thank you.
And agree or disagree with your take on politics today and the right or wrong approach, agree or disagree, you have to tip your hat, because you've been nothing if not transparent,
Yeah.
honest, speaking your mind, speaking your truth, and you're always welcome back
Oh, thank you.
at the Abilene People podcast. You're an interesting, compelling person,
Thank you, Dan.
and I'm proud to call you a friend. And today you have said so much, and I hope that we all will give ear and give our hearts to the better angels among us, as Lincoln said.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
Thank you for coming. Myra Dean.
Pleasure.
Myra Dean.
Danny
Myra
Sims,
Dean.
it's my pleasure.
Well, I'll tell you this. Say what you want about Abilene people, but this podcast has Abilene's most interesting people. And today we certainly had that in a full dose of interesting with our guest, Myra Dean. I want to give a shout out to our ace producer, Travis Corrigan, who makes it all hum. I like to say sometimes TCB, taking care of business. That's Travis Corrigan. And we hope that you'll take care of business and share this podcast. If you'll come back next time, we'll have another interesting guest here on Abilene People. I'm your host, Danny Sims, and I thank you so much for being with us and hope to see you next time.